The Warriors and the Rockets is pretty easily the most interesting first round matchup to me for quite a few reasons. Let's start with the narratives. You've got Tari Eason in an interview saying he doesn't like the Warriors. You've got the history between Draymond and Dillon Brooks, which featured a hilarious podcast clip. You've got a coaching rematch of the 2022 finals between Steve Kerr and Ime Udoka. And of course, you've got all of the history between these two teams during the Steph Curry era. But even more interesting to me is the clash in play styles. The Rockets are a huge team whose biggest strengths come back to length, athleticism, and the ability to dominate the glass, often coming with a trade-off of shooting and overall floor spacing, while the Warriors have the smallest starting lineup in the NBA, can sometimes struggle on the glass, and emphasize the use of speed, positioning, movement, and screening to create as much space as possible. I can't even imagine the amount of different strategies and lineups we'll probably see throughout this series, but who has the advantage? One place my mind immediately goes to is that recent matchup between these two teams on April 6th. The Rockets played one of the best defensive games I've ever seen against Steph, holding him to just 1 of 10 shooting, while the Warriors failed to crack 100 points. To me, the few matchups we saw this season showed us that Udoka has a very set-in-stone strategy for defending Steph. I'd assume they start the series with Amen Thompson guarding him, as he's athletic enough to stay glued, and the Dubs are going to run him off of all sorts of different screens, to which their defensive execution will have to be flawless. Whether it's Adams or Şengün at the 5, any screen involving one of those bigs, they're gonna blitz and trap the ball to get it out of Steph's hands, then they'll rely on those athletic wings behind the play to zone up and take away the roll. And it's worth mentioning that in prior games, the Rockets have gotten really weird with their matchups, so a screen involving a big might not be what you think. We've seen them put Amen or even Van Vliet on Draymond, while their bigs will often match up with guys like GP2, Moody, or Podziemski in hopes of taking away Golden State's primary screeners. But say the Warriors do go to screening action involving one of Houston's wings, that's when they're gonna switch everything. Arguably their biggest superpower as a team is that they have a ton of defenders you're comfortable putting on Steph. From all of those big, athletic wings to even a smaller chaser like Van Vliet, and the idea is that by switching these actions, you can avoid a numbers advantage, forcing Steph to play more one-on-one ball, then you can pressure the ball, bring aggressive help in the gaps, and take away his space. Like I said though, their execution is going to have to be perfect. If a big is late getting out in the trap, he'll have enough space to pull up from 3, and the same goes for the switches. It's gonna have to be an aggressive switch or he'll pull from extended range. Communication is gonna have to be perfect when Steph's away from the ball, because as we all know, if there's even the slightest mess up, those screeners are slipping into the paint for easy offense, and even if they're able to bait Steph into playing one-on-one, he's a skilled enough isolation creator to still get points on the board. The goal, though, is to slow down Golden State's primary form of advantage creation and force them to make some adjustments. One adjustment could just be to get more shooting on the court. If you're gonna blitz Steph and force him to hit the short roll every time, spacing the floor with 3 shooters makes it a lot harder to rotate behind the play. Another adjustment could be to turn to Jimmy a lot more as an isolationist, which they've shown a willingness to do as recently as in the Grizzlies game. With that said though, I do wonder if this is kind of a bad matchup for Jimmy. He's a guy who wants to attack mismatches, using his burst to go at slower footed players, and using his strength to go at smaller players. The Rockets don't really have anyone for him to attack in that way. I think they'll start with Dillon Brooks, but between him, Amen, Eason, and Smith, that's 4 guys who can all at least hold their own one-on-one, and like I said, I think they'll switch any screening action between wings, which sort of neutralizes the inverted pick and roll with Steph as a screener. If they're switching, I think Jimmy's looking to hunt for smaller guys like Van Vliet or Green, but then the Rockets' help defenders will again shrink the floor off of non-shooters, forcing the Warriors to make some really tough choices with their lineups. This feels like a series where GP2 and Draymond might struggle to get minutes together, And Looney probably becomes less of a factor, but I think it could be a potentially big series for guys like Quinten Post and Buddy Hield to really alleviate that pressure through their ability to space the floor. The main drawbacks with those guys is that they have defensive limitations, but this to me is the type of matchup where I think they'll be able to stay on the floor. Real quick, I want to talk about something that's really improved my ability to make these videos, and it's something that could help you in your everyday life as well. I love listening to music while I'm either working or at the gym, and Raycon's everyday earbuds have made it easy to get comfortable, high quality sound. So if you like to listen to music or maybe podcasts, or you need to take work calls or meetings, not only could these earbuds be of great use to you, they could be the perfect Mother's Day gift. Their latest model has a 32-hour battery life, and if you're running low, with Raycon's quick charge function, you can get 90 minutes of battery after just 10 minutes of charging. My personal favorite feature though is the active noise cancellation, and that's because when I'm in the gym or working on videos, I'm really trying to zone everything out and just lock in. With all of these features, you also get the looks, not just with all of the different colored earbuds, but with these super unique protective case covers. More than anything, they're extremely affordable, starting at just half the price as other premium audio brands, and they're even more affordable with the discount I've got for you guys. Go to buyraycon.com/hoopvenue to get 20% off site-wide. Once again, that's buyraycon.com/hoopvenue for 20% off site-wide. Brought to you by Raycon. On the side of Golden State's defense, Quinten Post has slow feet, so his struggles come when he's forced to defend in the pick and roll, as dynamic guards can really attack him in space or in drop coverage. In this series, it would be Fred or Jalen looking to attack in high ball screen action, but I think this is a matchup where you can live with that because of everything else going on behind the play. Houston's biggest weakness as a team is the fact that their wings aren't all the most reliable shooters. I think Brooks can be relied on at this point, but the Warriors will make Smith and Eason really prove that they can hit the volume 3, while Amen obviously isn't a threat to shoot. That puts the Warriors in a unique spot where they can go to all sorts of different matchups. If they want Draymond defending the primary action, they can throw him on a guy like Şengün while Post roams from the baseline, and if they want Draymond roaming on the baseline, they can throw him on one of those wings to play the role while Post prioritizes the ball off of screens. However, I do think they should try to keep Draymond on Şengün as much as possible, just because Şengün's such a dominant post scorer in single coverage. And for that reason, I'm expecting Jimmy to be relied on as that weak side guy. He's a really good roamer, and they'll probably throw him on someone like Amen to also match the physicality on the glass, as he's also capable of defending Amen on the ball. And just like the Rockets, I'd expect the Warriors to switch just about every action between the wings because they also have the benefit of zoning up weaker shooters. So much like on the other side of the ball, between Şengün post-ups, Jalen or Fred pick and rolls, and everything else the Rockets like to do, the Warriors shouldn't have much trouble sitting in the gaps, taking away the space to get to the rim, and forcing lots of turnovers. In my opinion, you only start to run into some serious problems when the Rockets go to their double big lineups. That's because between Adams, Şengün, and Amen, this might be the best offensive rebounding trio in NBA history. So if you force 2 on the ball, then make the Warriors get aggressive with their help, now there's basically nobody in position to keep those guys from creating second chance opportunities. That's a situation where you maybe need to get Looney on the court, as he's basically the only one who can handle Adams on the glass, but then you're sacrificing your offense a bit because that's another non-shooter, and that sort of leads me into the point I wanted to get to anyways, the fact that there's a chance this series is really nasty. And what I mean by that is if scores are in the 90s, shooting percentages are in the 40s, and games feel ridiculously slow, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Shout out to Carson from NerdSesh for bringing these numbers to my attention, but in the 5 games the Rockets have played against the Warriors this season, offense has basically been an afterthought. On the Rockets side, Jalen Green averaged about 13 points a game on 39% true shooting. Şengün was at 17 on 51%, Amen was at 12 on 50%, and Van Vliet was at 9 on 33%. Then on the Warriors side, Steph was at 16 points a game on 51% true shooting. Jimmy was at 16 on 61%, and I'm waiting to see if he can maintain that type of efficiency on increased volume. Podziemski was at 13 on 50%, and Buddy Hield was at 14 on 62%. So shout out to Buddy because like I said earlier, I think his outside shooting could be a potential swing factor in this series. As far as lineup choices go, I really don't know what to expect. The only players who I can say for certain are going to get lots of minutes on the Warriors side are Steph, Podziemski, Draymond, and Jimmy. I'd expect lots of Moses Moody due to his development as a 3-and-D guy, but I don't know what they'll do with their bench. Things could get really ugly for both teams if they go to GP2 for the added defense and Looney for the added rebounding. Then things could start to get a lot easier for them offensively if they go to Hield and post for the added shooting, so we'll just have to wait and see what Steve Kerr ends up doing. On the Rockets side, I feel a bit more confident in saying that at the very least Fred, Jalen, Dillon, Amen, Jabari, Şengün, and Eason get a lot of minutes, but the question floating in the air for me is whether or not they go double bigs for extended stretches, and for how long. That could end up being their hidden superpower, and in a matchup that I expect to be a lower scoring, grinded out type of series, the ability to win the possession game is often the biggest factor. If there's anything the Rockets should dominate in this series, it's the possessions. Not only are they an all-time great offensive rebounding team, both teams turn the ball over at a moderate rate, so I do think they end the series with more opportunities to score. And that alone almost makes me swing in that direction, but there's a voice in the back of my head telling me that this is the type of series that Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond just can't lose. The thing about proven playoff experience is that you've shown us that in the toughest circumstances, you'll find a way to get it done, and I might be giving a bit too much benefit of the doubt here, but my gut tells me to roll with that over Houston's advantages in terms of size, rebounding, and overall athleticism. Ultimately, I do think this is a 7-game series, and with Game 7 in Houston, that's another notch in their favor. We'll see some bad shooting nights from Steph, we'll see some lower scoring nights from Jimmy, we'll see lots of possessions where the motion offense looks helpless, and we'll see them get killed on the glass for extended stretches in each game. But when all of the chips are down in Game 7, I think the Warriors will have figured out enough for their top-end superstar talent to take them over the top. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out the Hoop Venue podcast and my social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think's gonna happen in this series. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.